Since its launch in 2005, Broad Street Review has sought to promote the exchange of viewpoints rather than any particular point of view. To that end, we welcome commentary from professionals and amateurs alike about the performing and visual arts, as well as any other field of interest to our eclectic group of contributors. The following interview was submitted to Broad Street Review, powered by Rep Radio. Today I'm here with Ben Lloyd on a day that is very much like it should be. It's kind of chilly out. It feels a little bit like winter. It's been kind of iffy the past couple of weeks or so, but now we are starting to feel a little bit like the season that we're in. So Ben, welcome.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so I have been aware of White Pines Productions for a long time, and I always know what's going on, but I haven't had the opportunity to chat and talk. So we'll play some catch up today. So tell us a little bit about White Pines.
Well, first of all, we're not the fancy Gilded Age estate anymore. We began doing most of our work at this remarkable place called the Elkins Estate on Ashbourne Road in Elkins Park. And as many people came to see what the estate looked like as they did to see what White Pines was doing. And so it was a blessing and a curse to be there, because we kind of got conflated with the estate. And as recently as a year ago, I was receiving phone calls from people saying, "Hey, I got an idea for something really cool to do up at your place, at that amazing place." And I was like, That amazing place actually was not my amazing place. And we have a very humble 1,500 square foot studio in Elkins Park, and I'd be glad to talk to you about your work in that amazing place. But the estate is not on the table these days. So.
Well, that's interesting. I think a lot of institutions tend to have, there's a little bit of a confusion. Sometimes the message outside in the world is a little bit different from the actuality. I could think of like the Academy of Natural Sciences, for example. My day job, the College of Physicians, Philadelphia, quite often have this. There's an outside mindset of what we are, but inside you find out that there's so much more to this, or we kind of had this involvement, but we're not necessarily what you think. But who knows? Maybe the correction might excite them even further. So,
well, the irony is that I created White Pines to be a performing arts organization that didn't have the burden of supporting an enormous facility, and wasn't creating products that required a lot of capital investment, like sets and costumes. And then so to begin with this sort of lean strategic model and wind up at a place that people called Little Versailles was kind of ironic. And, right now White Pines is very much more in the place that I originally envisioned it being, which is that we are a performing arts organization which is based on the skills of a resident ensemble. And that resident ensemble is called Bright Invention. And this is 14 of Philadelphia's greatest citizen artists who practice long-form improvisation together. I'm the artistic director and also an actor occasionally in the Bright Invention shows. And all of the programs that we create at White Pines are based on the skills and adaptability of our ensemble of improvisational actors. one way to think about White Pines is that we are an organization that uses performance creativity to solve problems in the world. And in our mission, we say we want to transform people's lives. And I take that very seriously, because my experience as an actor and as an audience member is that when the performing arts is really meaningful to me, I feel that I have been transformed, whether it's because I have laughed for 2 hours or whether it's because I leave a theater or a performance space feeling just profoundly altered in some way from the experience. And then on a deeper level, you know, when people are invited into a creative process where their own creativity is being engaged, when they're learning that they have creative agency, that they're able to trust their impulses and to make offers and build stories together out of their own authentic experience, that's an even deeper level of transformation. And we bring that to our students. We bring that to senior citizens and low-income housing sites. We bring that to people with disabilities. And we bring it to corporations and organizations that are looking for transformation through team building and creative professional workshops. So one of the things that people notice about White Pines that they complain about is, I can't figure out what you guys do. What do? You do a little of this, you do a little of that. And I'm stubborn, and I say that's exactly right. We are confirmed generalists, and we that was part of the strategic design all along, is that actors, in order to survive, learn to do a lot of things well. And White Pines is really based on the creative genius of the actor, which in my experience, there is no other form of performance like improvisation that celebrates the creative genius of the actor. So I don't know if that made any sense to you, but that's what I came up with.
White Pines is a jack of all trades.
It is. It is a jack of all trades, except, you know, the other thing, too, is I believe it. What I'm trying to do is create a new model for how to be a performing arts organization in the 21st century. Because my belief is that in 5 or 10 years, half of the theaters won't exist that exist now in Philadelphia. The economic model is not sustainable. The philanthropic pipelines are drying up, and the world is changing fast. The people who used to think of theater as a staple in their cultural diet are dying. It's become a grim joke. You know, you go to a play and you look around and, you know, I'm 54 years old. And when I think of myself as one of the youngest people in an audience, then I know we're in trouble. And it's a dirty little secret. It's not even really a secret anymore. So we need to find a new way to capitalize on what it is that makes live performance enduring, because it is enduring. We need it. In the very fabric of our DNA, we need to be in a room together experiencing something communal. That's how we were when we were gathered around, you know, desperate fires out in the steppe in Africa. You know, we needed to be together. So this idea of experiencing something as a community is deep in our DNA, and theater and performance does it so incredibly well. My goal is to try to figure out how to do that, deliver that experience, that communal, nurturing experience as powerfully and as economically as I can.
Yeah. I like that idea of being lean. I've often thought about that too. You know, there was a time where small theater companies fought for a handful of spaces that were available for rent, and if you got lucky, you could get into a slot. It may not be ideally the slot that you wanted, but you had to make do, and then you would essentially compete with everything around you, and it doesn't really give everyone a chance to experience what you have to offer, because there's too many choices in a you know, a handful of square miles, for example. Like if you think about Walnut, like Studio 5 or something, like you're going up to the 5th floor, but you've passed two stages before you got there already. So it's like, how do you get past all of these things? How do you make your mark and make yourself known?
Yeah. I think that's the question that every executive director and artistic director asks him or herself. What is to use a commercial language, how are we branding ourselves? Mm-hmm. This is a struggle that White Pines has as well, because we're not a theater. We're referred to as a theater company, but we're actually not a theater company. Mm-hmm. And then people say, well, what are you? And sort of the best thing I've come up with is a community-based performing arts studio, which really is sort of a shorthand, and it'll do, Mm-hmm. But I think part of my stubbornness is that, the culture we live in demands that we fit into sound bites so often. And sound bites do such an extraordinary disservice to the arts, because any person who has worked in the arts at all understands how much nuance and complexity there is in any artistic undertaking. I've even had this problem with the word improv. It's like it's almost like a dirty word. I mean, you say it to some people and they cringe and sort of kind of crawl away and try to change the subject because they have an idea in their heads about,
so you can't figure it out. You're just going to wing it? Is that what you mean?
Well, there's that, but there's also like, it'll be embarrassing fart jokes and they're going to drag me up on stage or something like that. You know what I mean? It's not that, obviously. It's we do long-form improvisation. We are very funny sometimes when the scene leads us in that direction. And when the scene leads us in another direction, we can be sad, we can be provocative, we can be even confusing, hopefully not confusing because it's, not done well, but confusing because life is confusing, and improvisation is the performance of the experience of living, in to a large degree. And more than any other kind of performance, I think, it melts the bridge in between audience and actor. It really pulls audience and actor together. So another way to think about what we're doing is we're not throwing focus on the stories that we're telling the way a more conventional theater might say, look at this play. This is an extraordinary story. We're going to tell it really well. And there's so many theaters in Philadelphia that do that amazingly, and God bless them, and I love them. But that's not what we're doing. What we're saying is we want the focus to be on the fact that we're all in a room together.
Yeah.
That's what the focus is. We're all here together and we are all co-creating something.
Yeah, definitely. Can you talk about some notable productions and performances that embody that White Pines spirit?
Well, I will plug our dinner theater series, which we've just begun. Mm-hmm. In an effort to, on the one hand, create a more elegant and maybe this is perhaps the wrong word to use, but rich experience for our audience. We've created a dinner theater performance, which is 3 courses of fine dining, appetizer, main course, and dessert, BYOB, and 3 courses of spontaneously generated performance. So we transform our flexible 1,500 square foot studio into a more elegant feeling performance space. We purchased a bunch of tables, and they have the tablecloths, and they have centerpieces and glitter and little tea candles, and we do some really nice kind of moody environmental lighting. Mm-hmm. And we partnered with a catering company that develops menus with us. And our desserts are provided by a member of our ensemble named John Schultz, who's a local actor, and also the head of a vegan bakery called Batter and Crumbs. Mm. And he provides amazing vegan treats for us for dessert. And we do improvised performance in 3 courses. The appetizer course is short form improv, which is what people usually think of when they think of improv. It's funny games, broad characters, sketch comedy. Just go for the laughs as fast and as hard as you can. Then we take a little break and people get their main course. And then we do the long form. And the long form is called Out of One, We Are Many. in which we ask an audience member to tell a story about his or her week. And then other audience members write little reflections on note cards after that story is told. Just 2 sentences. What did that story make you think of from your own life? What occurs to you from hearing that story? What feelings do you have from that story? And those note cards get passed up to the actors on stage who read them out loud. And once that happens, then everybody in the room is in the same experience, is implicated. And we create scenes out of those note cards. And hopefully that experience, combined with the food, combined with the fact that you're sitting at a table with 2 people you know and 2 people you don't know, is bringing us closer together in a circle of shared experience, a circle of empathy, a circle of enjoyment, a circle of safety. And God knows in this day and age right now, we need that, Yeah. And then dessert, we call dessert the surprise. Dessert can be anything from 2 guys doing some vaudeville that they've rehearsed to a person doing some from the ensemble doing some singer-songwriter stuff. We don't. It's a surprise, so we don't tell you. Maybe it's improv, maybe it isn't. But we sold out our first show, and we're having our next show this coming Saturday, tomorrow night. So a lot of what I'm doing today and tomorrow is transforming the room and getting ready to welcome an audience for our dinner theater show tomorrow night.
Great. I want to go back to the comment you made about people inquiring what White Pines Productions is, like who you are. Do you think that's more of a concern for individuals or for potential grant makers?
It's really both. I'll start with the second part first. Grant makers like to be able to put your organization in a little box that they can understand, so that they can say, oh, I know what you're doing. We fund that. Or, I know what you're doing. We don't fund that.
Yeah.
Frequently, what organizations do is they bend their mission in order to fit into one of those boxes, which you can get away with sometimes, and other times it's just not a good idea.
Yeah.
So what we do from a development point of view is we really are program specific for our grant applications. And we have some unique programs that need to find unique funding streams. We've, for instance, really become interested in creating improv-based theater out of the stories and memories of our senior citizens, of our elderly population. And we have a guy named Jerry Perna, who's our director of senior programs, who's kind of a magician when it comes to working with this population. And we have 2 members of our ensemble, Kelly McCon and Dan Eisen, are supporting Jerry's work. And they're going to do their show with the seniors on the 13th of December at Seligman House. So that's a program that, we can go to a funder and say, we're doing this really specific thing with this very specific population. But, what we realized recently is what we really need help with is marketing. We really need somebody to come in who's real smart with how nonprofits present themselves to the world. And I just feel like we need a kind of a once-over, not so that we misrepresent ourselves, but maybe there's a way for us to focus a little bit more clearly on some part of our mission that gets represented in everything we do. This idea of using the performing arts to transform people's lives.
Yeah.
That's a long way of saying, yes, it's a liability that White Pines has. I've been sort of working with it, struggling with it, celebrating it for the last 7 years. And I think each year we get a little bit better at getting our message out more and more clearly.
Yeah. I want to dig a little deeper into that. because I bring that up all the time. Sometimes there's a mindset in the communications department that some of what you have to offer is not for everyone. So they try to break down the audience, and they only show them some of what you are, and they essentially hide the rest from them. And then that doesn't give them much of an opportunity for choice. So, for instance, if you are you have multiple products. Let's just say products for now.
Sure.
Underneath your umbrella, somebody might, let's say, so dinner theater is more for a senior crowd, whereas this experimental improvisational work is for a younger audience.
Mm-hmm.
I personally don't think that that's necessarily justified. I feel like I would want to give the world everything we have to offer and let them figure it out for themselves. But quite often, we go back to the boxes that you're put in. If somebody's thinking of you as a theater company, they're thinking about traditional theater, and then they do not realize, oh, dinner theater. I go to dinner on weekends.
And I like theater.
Weekend event, and I like theater. Why can't I do both at the same time? But they're just like, you're thinking like, oh, that's just a dinner theater. It's different. It's not it's like, it's the same thing that people would say about like, I like theater, but I don't like musicals.
Right.
But they will go to a concert, which is essentially a musical. Yeah.
So, yeah, I hear what you're saying. One of the opportunities we have is that we can cross-promote. Mm-hmm. So we will be at the final show of our youth improv class, where we've got 7, 8, 9, and 10-year-olds doing improv, and their parents come, and it's the typical like parents coming to see their kids perform, mom and dad, and maybe grandma's in tow, and everyone's got their iPhones out to take the movie. And we say to the parents, hey, guess what? Get a babysitter and come and see our improv show. It's not suitable for kids because we like to swear, but you might have a really great time.
Yeah.
So we were able to do that. And then tonight, when people are coming to see the improv show in their program, they look at the back page. There's going to be a list of our winter classes, So again, that was a strategic choice to like do a bunch of different things, and we can let those different audiences know about these other opportunities they might not have thought about for themselves before. Mm-hmm. I think it's working. It's working slowly. One of the things that I've had to learn, and you think you hear. It takes time to build an audience. If you're in the arts, you hear this all the time. Mm-hmm. When you experience it, it's like, really? Does it take this long? So that's been, this year for the first time, White Pines is doing regular public performances. It's the first sort of season that we're doing this. We did our Bright Invention season, which ends tonight. It was 8 weekends of performances that are based on our ensemble Bright Invention. January, February, and March, we're going to do a performance of guest artists called Cold Hard Love, which will be performances based on love, relationships, and sexuality. And then we'll come back to another Bright Invention run in the springtime. And we've done shows for 4 people out here. I'm not ashamed to say it, but also a little embarrassed to say it. But there it is. Hopefully
you found them. So there's some value in that too.
Yeah, and we're also trying to let people know. Look, it's 20 minutes outside of Philadelphia. We're not in Lancaster. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's like we are the first. We're the first quote unquote suburb over the city line. If you drive up Broad Street, we're right there. So, and we have the train station is 50 yards from our front door.
That's what I was going to ask you too. There appears to be this fear of leaving Center City kind of mindset. And one of the things I liked about earlier on when I got more involved in the theater community in Greater Philadelphia, I was a Barrymore voter, and the thing I liked about that is that we were just assigned shows. So if I'm assigned to Delaware Theater Company, I guess I'm going to figure out how to get to Delaware Theater Company. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't have known how great the work is at New Candlelight Theater if I didn't accept the fact that I was scheduled to go out there.
Right.
Even though that one is a little bit of a challenge, but it just forced me to figure out this isn't as complicated, and actually I can bring a friend, and now we can both have a ride home.
Yeah.
So that's not a problem.
Well, it's a testament to Philadelphia that there are so many great things to do in the city.
Yes.
You really have to be compelling to get the cultural audience to leave, come out to the burbs to see something.
Yeah. Well, again, I'm glad that we started this conversation, because we'll definitely return, and hopefully we can be a part of helping shine more of a light on White Pine's productions and all the various offerings. As we approach an uncertain new year, I'm asking everyone, what do you think artists should be thinking about or have on their minds moving forward?
I've been thinking about this a lot. I think we want to be opportunistic, and if an opportunity presents itself for us to use our creative gifts to create more understanding, more voices of empowerment, then we need to leap at those opportunities, which is a long way of saying artists need to be really brave right now, crazy brave, and do that thing that you never thought you had the guts to do. Now is the time to do it, whatever that is. The other thing we need to do, I think, is really rely on each other. Let's try as much as possible not to undercut each other. Let's try as much as possible to remain curious about what our peers are doing, and to help each other out when we can. And then the last thing I would say is, I always have to remind myself, as much as I love my brother and sister citizen artists, I'm actually not making art for them. Mm-hmm. I'm making art for Aunt Marjorie. You know what I mean? I'm making art for the guy up the street who runs the local bakery. I'm making art for the family that lives in the housing project across. That's who I'm making art for.
Yeah.
And the more we can remind ourselves that we are serving a community need by being performers and take that responsibility seriously, I think we can play a really important part in the well-being of our culture.
Yeah.
That's what we'll try to do at White Pines, for sure.
That's why the missions of our organizations are larger than life.
Right.
Because our goal is to attempt to change the world in some way, and while that seems like a tall order, it's the reason we keep going. It's the
we do change the world.
Moving forward.
I mean, every time we perform, we change the world. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can call it a semantic distinction if you want, but I believe it's true. We absolutely change the world every time we perform. Every time we make something new and bring it into the world is different. We've changed it, Mm-hmm. Artists are aspirational creatures. We aspire. We are also prophetic. We are prophetic creatures. We see what is not already. We see what isn't here yet. We imagine what it is, and then we bring it to life. Mm. It's always been. It's always seemed obvious to me that we have this deep fear of becoming machines. If you look at the disaster movies, right, beginning with like The Matrix, actually further back, the Terminator movies, right? How many movies have we seen about a dystopian future in which machines take over?
Yeah.
We're deeply afraid of this for good reason. Look at the way you and I are communicating right now, right? Mm-hmm. For good reason. Yeah. So this is just like a pop culture version, a pop culture example of the way in which artists are prophetic. And that's another one. I think we have to stop dancing around that and really own it. You know, in the tribal cultures, we would be holy people. We would be shaman. And the community would come to us for guidance, say, where are we going? And then we would transform, and we would do something that was kind of curious and strange and not obvious and elliptical. And everybody would walk away scratching their heads, but they'd have something to think about. Yeah. You know, there'd at least be some sense of movement into the future. And that's what we do creatively. And I think the more we own that legacy of prophetic vision, the stronger we become as people in our communities.
What inspires you the most? I know that sounds so generic.
The Boston Red Sox. No. They actually had a terrible end of the season this year. That was not inspiring.
I'm often surprised how many creative artists are so in tune to sports. It always seems like it's not catered to us, or we're not the audience, but we embrace it wholeheartedly, and we often ask the question, well, we're going to sports. Why aren't the sports fans supporting us? The way we're supporting sports.
Well, they do. They come. They just don't make as much to do about it. You know, it's funny. I was in a production of Cyrano at the Arden, and I was backstage and got talked into a fantasy baseball league by Scott Greer and Matt Pfeiffer, and one of the other guys was in that group. And I'd never done it before, and now I'm a fantasy baseball addict.
Troublemakers.
Yeah. But what inspires me the most, you know, I think when for me, it is the artist, and not even let's leave artist out of it, the human being making a discovery right in front of me. When I'm present for a human being making a personal discovery, and that happens in acting classes. If you're doing it well, that happens a lot, you know. And I still teach. I teach at White Pines, but also in my work with Bright Invention, watching members of my own Bright Invention ensemble take risks and explore something and discover something new about themselves is so inspiring to me. Also, watching the quality of attention in an audience when an audience is engaged and they have that kind of slack expression on their faces because they're so carried by what they're seeing. Frequently, this happens in like really powerful and kind of quiet musical presentations, but it can also happen occasionally in the theater. That's deeply inspiring to me as well. So those are very personal moments, and we're privileged in the performing arts to be present for them, but we have to be awake, and we also we have to not shy away from them because they can be embarrassing. They can make us feel vulnerable. They can be very tender, but that's our work, is to be present for those moments of personal discovery. And again, I sound like I'm beating a dead horse. Improv is the performance of those discoveries. When it's done well, improv is a series of those discoveries that get made right there in the present moment. They will never be made again, and the audience was present when those discoveries were made. And so they're also provoked to look inward and make their own discoveries.
Great. Well, this was great, and I'm glad we finally got a chance to chat. And now I know a lot more about White Pines Productions, and I'm going to get out there and experience what you have to offer.
Come have dinner with us tomorrow night.
Yeah, that'll be great. What or how can our listeners keep in touch and stay in the know with White Pines Productions?
Well, our website is easy to remember. It's our name, whitepinesproductions.org. Mm-hmm. You can poke around the website. You can sign up for our email list on the contact page. You can read our blog. You can see beautiful pictures of our ensemble. You can learn about our classes. And so that's really the place to start. After dinner theater on Saturday night, the 3rd of December, the next thing we're doing is our last event of 2016 is a free event called the Pinecone Rumpus, mm-hmm. which is a holiday celebration of our students and of our community. It's Saturday the 10th of December mm-hmm. at our Elkins Park location from 3 to 6. Drop by anytime, eat cookies, sing, see some improv, and learn more about White Pines in person.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time today, and thank you for letting us into the world that is White Pines Productions. And I look forward to continuing our conversation as your work continues to develop. Thank you so much for sharing with us today.
You're welcome, Darnell. Thank you.
All right. This podcast is brought to you by Broad Street Review, the website where art and ideas meet. Since 2005, BroadStreetReview.com is the place knowledgeable Philadelphians turn for honest, independent, and passionate criticism and commentary about Philadelphia's dynamic arts scene. Join the conversation. It's free. You can reach Broad Street Review online at BroadStreetReview.com. Follow us on Twitter at Broad Street Review and like us on Facebook. To show your support for this podcast and our Philadelphia area arts coverage, please go to BroadStreetReview.com and click the button at the top of the page that says Contribute. Thank you for helping to keep the conversation going.